Claire, your father and I think it would be better if you didn't come to the wedding. Claire Bennett stopped with one hand inside the dishwasher. Her mother kept talking. Something about Megan being under pressure. Something about keeping the day peaceful. Something about how weddings brought out complicated feelings in people. Claire took a clean plate from the bottom rack and set it on the counter. Does Megan know you're telling me this? A pause. She agrees it's probably best. Claire looked across her kitchen. Megan's wedding invitation was still held to the refrigerator by a small blue magnet. Her name was written across the envelope in Megan's handwriting. Claire Bennett. Not +1. Not extended family. Her sister. Okay, Claire said. Her mother seemed caught off guard. Okay, I heard you. Claire was 34, and she had spent most of those years being the person in her family who made difficult things easier. She remembered birthdays, checked reservations, fixed mistakes before anyone else noticed them. She had always believed being dependable meant something. Lately, she had started wondering exactly what. And before I tell you what happened 3 days later, I'm curious. How old are you? Where are you watching from? And have you ever had family make you feel useful but not wanted? Her father came onto the call before it ended. Don't turn this into something bigger than it is, Claire. Robert Bennett had a way of making conflict sound like a scheduling problem. Claire dried her hands. I'm not. Megan just wants one peaceful day. I understand. That word again. Understand. Claire had been hearing it since she was a teenager. Understand why Megan needed more attention. Understand why mom was stressed. Understand why dad didn't want an argument. Claire had gotten very good at understanding everyone except herself. She ended the call without asking to be invited back. For the next 3 days, nobody contacted her. Not Megan. Not her father. Not even Diane. Claire went to work, came home, made dinner, and passed that invitation every time she opened the refrigerator. She never took it down. Friday afternoon, at 2:17, her phone rang. Mom. Claire watched it buzz twice before answering. Hi. Diane skipped hello. The venue needs the final payment today. Claire said nothing. It's $42,000, Diane continued. They need your card by 5, or we could lose the current package. Claire looked toward the refrigerator. The invitation was still there. 3 days earlier, her presence had become a problem. Apparently, her credit card had not. Diane lowered her voice. Claire, did you hear me? Yes. So can you take care of it? Claire reached for the invitation and removed it from beneath the blue magnet. She didn't tear it. She didn't throw it away. She placed it carefully on the kitchen counter. Then she asked the one question her mother clearly hadn't prepared for. Does Megan know you're asking me for $42,000? For the first time since the call began, Diane had no immediate answer. The silence lasted long enough for Claire to hear the refrigerator humming behind her. Then Diane said, Of course Megan knows about the wedding expenses. That wasn't what I asked. Another pause. Claire, please. We have a deadline. Claire looked at the invitation on the counter. I know. The venue needs an answer by 5. I know that too. Diane exhaled. Then what are we doing here? Claire almost answered the way she usually did. Nothing. Send me the link. For years, those had been the easiest words in her family. When Robert needed flights changed after booking the wrong weekend, he called Claire. When Diane couldn't make sense of an insurance form, she photographed every page and texted it to Claire. When Megan moved into her first apartment, Claire arrived with packing tape at 8 Saturday morning. Megan arrived at 11 carrying coffee. Nobody had planned it that way. At least Claire didn't think they had. She had simply become reliable, one small yes at a time. The wedding had started the same way. 7 months earlier, Megan had spread vendor brochures across Diane and Robert's dining table. She was excited, overwhelmed, and trying to compare numbers that kept changing. Claire sat beside her with a legal pad. You don't have to do this, Megan had said. I know. Claire had meant it. She offered to cover part of the wedding because she wanted to. Megan was her only sister, and despite everything complicated between them, Claire wanted to be part of the day. At first, it felt like she was. Megan sent her pictures of dresses. She asked whether the chicken or short ribs sounded better. She called Claire from a parking lot after touring the venue and said, I think this is the one. Then the expenses began moving. The upgraded chairs were easier if Claire handled them. The additional catering deposit could go on Claire's card for now. When Robert learned the photographer required another payment, Diane said, Claire can probably take care of that. Each request was small enough to solve, so Claire solved it. And each time, she told herself the same thing. This was what families did. Now, standing in her kitchen with 3 hours until the venue deadline, Claire realized she couldn't remember when helping had turned into being expected to help. "Mom," she said, "how much does Megan think I agreed to pay?" Diane's answer came quickly. "We've all contributed. That's not a number. Your father and I have put in plenty. I didn't ask what Dad paid." Diane's voice tightened. "Why are you interrogating me? I'm trying to understand what I agreed to. You agreed to help your sister have her wedding." There it was. Not an amount. Not a specific expense. A role. Claire walked to the small desk beside her living room window and opened the folder where she kept wedding receipts. Venue deposit. Catering. Rentals. Flowers. She had kept every confirmation because nobody else seemed to. Diane continued talking. "Megan has enough going on right now. Her future in-laws have opinions about everything. Robert is trying to keep costs under control, and I am doing my best to keep everyone from fighting." Claire ran her finger down the receipts. She could understand that. That was the problem. She could always understand. Megan really was overwhelmed. Diane really was trying to keep the wedding from turning into a family war. Robert really did hate confrontation. None of those things explained why Claire was the easiest person to remove. Or why. Removing her apparently changed nothing about what she owed. "I'm not paying anything today until I talk to Megan." Diane went quiet. Then, "Don't do this to her 3 weeks before her wedding." Claire closed the folder. "I'm calling my sister. That's not doing something to her. She doesn't need more stress. Then she can tell me that herself." After the call ended, Claire found Megan's name in her contacts. Her thumb rested over the screen. For the first time since the wedding planning began, Claire wasn't trying to fix a problem before anyone else had to feel it. She pressed call. It rang 6 times, then went to voicemail. Claire didn't leave a message. Less than 30 seconds later, her mother called back. Claire let her mother's call ring out. A text appeared almost immediately. "Mom, please don't start calling Megan. She's already overwhelmed." Claire read it twice. Then another arrived. "Mom, I'll handle this." That sentence bothered her more than the first. Claire opened her messages with Megan and scrolled back through the wedding planning. There were dress photos from months ago. A picture of 2 centerpieces with Megan asking, "Which one?" A blurry selfie from the venue parking lot. Then the messages changed. The closer the wedding got, the fewer came directly from Megan. "Mom says you can cover the rental deposit. Thank you. Mom told me you're okay with the extra guests. You're seriously saving us. Mom said the catering thing is handled. Love you." Claire stopped scrolling. She hadn't noticed the pattern because every individual request had seemed ordinary. Her phone rang again. This time she answered. "Why can't I talk to Megan?" Diane sounded tired rather than angry. "I never said you couldn't. You called 30 seconds after I tried. Because I knew what you were going to do." "What am I going to do? Make her explain everything when she's already barely holding this wedding together?" Claire leaned against the desk. "I'm her sister, and right now I'm asking you to give her some room." "Mom, 3 days ago you called to tell me I'm not welcome at her wedding. Today you called for $42,000. I think I'm allowed one." Conversation. Diane was quiet. Then she said, "Megan feels terrible about all of this." Claire looked down at the phone. "Megan feels terrible. Yes. Megan wants space. Yes. Megan still expects the venue payment." A smaller pause. "We all expected you to honor what you committed to." Claire picked up a pen. On the back of an old envelope, she wrote 3 words. "Megan feels terrible." Underneath, "Megan wants space." Then, "Megan expects payment." Every sentence had come from Diane. None from Megan. Claire capped the pen. "Put her on the phone. She isn't here. Then have her call me." "Claire, not you. Megan." Diane's voice hardened. "The payment deadline doesn't move just because you're upset. I'm not asking it to." "What does that mean?" "It means I'm not authorizing $42,000 based on a conversation with someone who isn't getting married." For once, Diane didn't have a quick response. Claire ended the call. At 3:06, an email arrived from the venue coordinator. Diane had copied Claire on a thread asking whether the final payment could be processed using the card previously used for deposits. Claire read the message carefully. She could have replied with one word. No. Instead, she wrote that no additional charge was authorized without her direct approval and asked the coordinator not to process her card until she confirmed in writing. She read it once before sending. No threats. No cancellation. No attempt to ruin anything. Just a boundary where everyone had assumed there wasn't one. At 3:19, Robert called. Your mother says you froze the venue payment. I asked them not to charge my card without permission. You know what I mean. No, Dad. I think that's part of the problem. Robert sighed. Claire could picture him at the kitchen table, rubbing the bridge of his nose while Diane moved things around the room. We're 3 weeks out, he said. Can't we get through the wedding first and deal with the family stuff afterward? Claire stared at the 3 sentences she had written. That had always been Robert's solution. Get through Christmas. Get through Megan's graduation. Get through Mom's birthday. Get through the move. Peace first. Conversation later. Later rarely came. I need Megan to call me. She doesn't want another argument. Did she tell you that? Robert didn't answer immediately. Claire straightened. Dad, she's under a lot of pressure. That wasn't an answer either. At 4:11, Claire's phone finally lit up with Megan's name. Not a call. A text. Can you please just let Mom handle this? Claire looked at the message for several seconds. Then she typed, no. She erased it. What she needed from Megan wasn't another request passed through their mother. So Claire wrote something else. I need to hear the decision from you. Not Mom. Not Dad. You. The typing bubble appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Then vanished. 5 o'clock was 42 minutes away. At 4:43, Megan still hadn't answered. Claire closed her laptop. The venue deadline was 17 minutes away, but the payment was no longer the question she needed answered first. She picked up her keys. Her parents lived 12 minutes away. When Claire pulled into their driveway, Robert's car was there. So was Megan's. Claire sat behind the wheel for a moment. Megan had been there while Diane said she wasn't. Claire didn't decide what that meant. Not yet. She took the wedding invitation from her purse and went inside. Diane was standing at the kitchen island with her phone in one hand. Robert sat at the table. Megan was near the window, still wearing the gray sweatshirt Claire had given her last Christmas. Nobody looked surprised to see her. That told Claire enough. Diane set down her phone. You shouldn't have come over like this. Claire placed the invitation on the island. I called. Megan looked away. I texted. I know, Megan said. It was the first time Claire had heard her sister's voice since being uninvited. Claire pulled out a chair, but didn't sit. I need one answer. Robert leaned back. Can we please not turn this into a confrontation? I'm asking a question. Diane folded a dish towel and placed it beside the sink. Megan has been dealing with a lot. Daniel's parents have been difficult about the seating, and there are already tensions between people who are going to be in the same room. Claire kept her eyes on. Megan, did you decide I shouldn't be there? Diane answered first. It wasn't that simple. I asked Megan. Megan rubbed her thumb along the cuff of her sweatshirt. Claire, yes or no? Robert looked at his watch. The venue is waiting. Claire turned toward him. They can wait 5 more minutes. Then she looked back at Megan. Megan finally said, I agreed to it. Nothing in the room moved. Claire had expected the answer. Hearing it still changed something. Why? Megan took a breath. Daniel's mom thinks there's tension between you and Mom. There is. That's what I mean. So I'm the one who doesn't come? I didn't say it like that. How did you say it? Megan looked toward Diane. Claire noticed. So did Diane. Megan was trying to avoid a scene, Diane said. Claire held up one hand. Please stop answering for her. Diane's mouth closed. Megan stared at the floor. There are 100 things going wrong, she said. Daniel's parents are complaining about the tables. Mom's been upset. Dad doesn't want people arguing. I just wanted one day where nobody was managing some family problem. Claire nodded once. That part, at least, sounded honest. And you thought removing me would do that. Megan's eyes came up. I thought you'd understand. The sentence landed quietly. No one shouted. Claire looked at her sister. There had been years of those words. When Megan came home from college after changing majors for the second time, Claire understood why Robert paid another semester. When Megan needed Diane every weekend during her breakup, Claire understood why her own problems could wait. When Robert missed Claire's housewarming because Megan's car wouldn't start, Claire understood. She had mistaken being the person who could take disappointment for being the person the family trusted most. Maybe they were not the same thing. Diane's phone buzzed on the island. She checked it. The venue, she said. Claire, we need to deal with this now. Megan looked confused. Deal with what? Claire didn't answer. Diane's expression changed. Only slightly. But Claire saw it. Megan turned toward her mother. What? The final venue balance. I thought that was already paid. No, Claire said. Megan looked at her. Then at Diane. How much is left? Diane reached for the stack of wedding papers beside her. Can we please handle one thing at a time? How much? Claire watched Diane straighten the edges of the papers against the countertop. Once. Twice. 42,000. Megan stopped rubbing her sleeve. 42. It includes the final venue package and several remaining items. Megan looked back at Claire. I thought you already agreed to that. Claire felt something settle into place. Not the whole picture, but enough to know there was a picture. When did I agree? Megan blinked. Mom said you did. Claire turned toward Diane. Diane's shoulders tightened. I said Claire had committed to helping with the wedding. That isn't the same thing, Claire said. Robert stood. All right. Everybody's stressed. We can sort out exactly who said what after we get through today. Claire almost laughed. Not because anything was funny. Because there it was again. Get through today. Sort it out later. She looked at the invitation on the island. Then at the invoice beneath Diane's hand. One said Claire no longer had a place at the wedding. The other had apparently been built around the assumption that she still had a job there. Claire pulled out a chair and sat down. No, Robert frowned. No what? No more getting through things first. She moved the invitation beside the stack of bills. Then she looked at Megan. I want to know what you were told I agreed to. Megan hesitated. Claire waited. Finally, Megan said, not just the venue. Diane stopped straightening the papers. Claire looked at her mother. Then back at her sister. What else? What else? Megan looked at Diane before answering. The flowers. The shuttle. Part of the catering upgrade. Claire stayed still. And the extra hotel rooms. Robert rubbed a hand across his forehead. Megan, nobody needs to go through every line item right now. Yes, Claire said. We do. Diane pulled out the chair across from her. Claire, when you offered to help, I thought you understood how expensive this was becoming. I understood what I agreed to. You never gave me a limit. Claire looked at her. That sentence explained more than Diane seemed to realize. I didn't give you permission to create one for me either. Megan reached for the stack of papers, but Claire stopped her with a question. When Mom told you I'd cover these things, did you ever ask me? Megan's hand remained on the edge of the stack. No, why not? I thought you two had talked. Every time. Megan hesitated. At first. Claire waited. Megan looked down. After a while, I guess I just assumed. There it was. Not a conspiracy. Not some carefully planned attempt to take Claire's money. Something more ordinary had happened. And somehow that hurt more. Everyone had gotten used to Claire making things easier. Diane got used to volunteering her. Robert got used to staying out of disagreements. Megan got used to hearing that Claire had everything handled. And Claire had spent years teaching them that assumption was safe. She looked at the wedding invitation beside the bills. 3 days ago, Diane had been able to remove Claire from the guest list with one phone call. Today, somehow, no one believed removing her from the financial plan required even a conversation. Claire picked up the invitation. Who told Megan I would understand being uninvited? Diane's expression tightened. I told her you wouldn't want to make her wedding harder. That isn't what I asked. Diane looked toward Robert. He studied the table. Claire turned to Megan. Did you ask Mom to tell me? Megan swallowed. I told her I didn't know how. So she offered. Megan nodded. And you let her? Another nod. Claire set the invitation down. Then she understood what had been bothering her since Friday afternoon. This wasn't really a fight about $42,000. It wasn't even only about the wedding. Her family had built a system around avoiding uncomfortable conversations. And Claire had become the person who paid the cost of that avoidance. Sometimes literally. When Megan wanted something difficult, Diane translated it. When Diane pushed too far, Robert called it keeping the peace. When Claire was hurt, everyone counted on her being mature enough not to make the hurt inconvenient. No one had needed to ask whether Claire agreed. They already knew what Claire usually did. She adjusted. That was the part she could change. Claire reached for the invoice. Diane leaned forward. Are you going to pay it? Claire read the amount once. $42,000. Then she placed the invoice back in the center of the table. I haven't decided what I'm doing about the money. Diane stared at her. The deadline was 5. I know. Then what are we sitting here discussing? Claire turned to Megan. Us. Megan looked confused. Claire continued. If you don't want me at your wedding, you get to tell me that. I may hate hearing it, but it's your wedding. Diane opened her mouth. Claire raised a finger without looking at her. And if you want something from me, you ask me. You don't ask Mom to ask me. You don't let her promise something for me. You don't assume I'll understand. Megan's eyes dropped to the invitation. Claire looked at Robert next. And Dad, if you disagree with something, say it. If you agree, Say that too. But let's get through today isn't an answer anymore. Robert shifted in his chair. Claire finally faced her mother. And you don't speak for me again. Diane's face changed. I was trying to keep this family together. I believe you. That seemed to surprise her. Claire did believe it. Diane hated open conflict. She fixed it by moving messages between people, softening one sentence, changing another, deciding who could handle disappointment and who couldn't. For years, it had probably felt like love. But love that never allowed people to speak directly had created something else. Megan looked at the bills. What happens to the wedding now? Claire shook her head. That's the first thing we're going to stop doing. What? Looking at me every time something goes wrong. The kitchen went quiet. Megan slowly pulled the stack toward herself. For the first time that afternoon, she began reading the numbers instead of waiting for someone else to explain them. Claire watched her sister reach the second page. Her expression changed. Not shock. Recognition. Megan looked at their mother. Then at Claire. I don't even know what half of this is. Claire nodded. I know. Megan sat back. What am I supposed to do? A week earlier, Claire would already have had 3 answers. She would have opened her laptop, called the venue, moved numbers around, fixed it. Instead, she folded her hands on the table. I'll sit here with you while you figure that out. Megan stared at her. Claire didn't move. She wasn't abandoning her sister. She was doing something much harder. She was staying in the room without rescuing her. And for the first time, the Bennett family had to find out what happened when Claire stopped being the place where everyone else's discomfort disappeared. For the next 20 minutes, Claire did almost nothing. That was new. Megan sat at the kitchen table with the wedding paperwork spread in front of her. Diane stood behind her chair, pointing at numbers whenever Megan paused. The shuttle can't change, Diane said. Daniel's relatives are depending on it. Megan made a note. And we already promised his parents the upgraded bar. Another note. The flowers, Mom. Megan didn't raise her voice. Diane stopped. I need to read it. Claire watched her mother take one step back. It was a small thing, but Claire couldn't remember the last time Megan had asked Diane to stop managing something for her. Robert brought his reading glasses from the living room and sat at the other end of the table. What did we actually agree to pay? Megan asked him. Robert looked uncomfortable. Your mother handled most of that. Megan turned to Diane. Diane crossed her arms. I handled it because somebody had to. Nobody argued with her. That was true. The problem was how many decisions had quietly become hers in the process. Megan worked through the expenses one at a time. The $42,000 wasn't one mysterious charge. It was the remaining venue balance combined with upgrades and services that had accumulated over months. Some mattered to Megan. Some didn't. A larger floral package had been added after Diane worried the original arrangements would look sparse. Extra hotel rooms had been held because Robert didn't want out-of-town relatives complaining. The upgraded bar had stayed because Daniel's parents preferred it. Everyone had protected someone from disappointment. Claire had simply been expected to protect everyone. At 5:26, Megan pushed the papers away. We can't pay all of this. Diane immediately looked at Claire. Claire noticed. So did Megan. Mom. Diane turned back to her. What? Stop looking at her. Diane's lips pressed together. I'm not doing anything. You are. Megan pulled the invoice closer again. What happens if we reduce the package? Claire knew several possibilities. She had read the venue agreement months ago. She could have explained the change deadlines, minimums, and which upgrades were probably negotiable. Instead, she asked, who should you call to find out? Megan stared at her for a second, then picked up her phone. The venue. Right. Diane shook her head. They're going to think we're disorganized. Megan looked at the papers covering the table. We are disorganized. Robert almost smiled. Diane didn't. The venue coordinator was still in the office. Megan put the call on speaker. For 11 minutes, she asked questions Claire would normally have asked for her. Could they remove the premium floral add-on? Yes. Could they reduce the bar package? Yes, with a revised minimum. Could they release some unused hotel rooms? That had to go through the hotel directly. Could the final balance be split? Possibly, but the venue needed a revised selection that evening. Megan wrote everything down. When the call ended, the wedding had not collapsed. Nobody had been thrown out. There was simply work to do. Megan stared at her notes. We can cut almost 12,000. Robert leaned forward. I can cover another 5. Diane looked at him. You said we were at our limit. I said I didn't want to go over it. That's not the same thing. Robert removed his glasses. No, The room went quiet again. Claire looked between them. Apparently, she wasn't the only person whose words had been getting translated into something more convenient. Megan turned toward Diane. What can you and Dad actually afford? Diane's face tightened. This is your wedding. I don't want you worrying about our finances. I'm already worrying about Claire's. Nobody said anything. Megan seemed to hear her own sentence. After she said it, she looked at Claire. I'm sorry. Claire didn't rush to make the moment easier. She simply nodded. Keep going. By 7, they had reduced the gap substantially. Not enough, but substantially. Megan called Daniel and told him what was happening. Claire heard only Megan's side. No, she didn't cancel anything. Pause. No. We assumed. Longer pause. I know. Megan walked into the hallway to finish the conversation. Diane began collecting empty coffee cups. This is exactly what I was trying to prevent, she said quietly. Claire stayed seated. What? Everyone panicking. Mom, everyone was already panicking. You were just making sure they did it separately. Diane stopped with 2 mugs in her hands. That's unfair. Maybe. Claire wasn't interested in winning the argument. Diane set the mugs beside the sink. You think I enjoyed asking you for money? No. You think I wanted Megan to exclude you? Claire studied her mother. No, Diane's shoulders dropped slightly. Then why are you treating me like I did all this on purpose? Claire considered that, because that would have been easier. If Diane had planned everything, Claire could make her the villain and be done with it. But Diane had spent years believing peace meant keeping the most difficult person calm and asking the most dependable person to bend. She probably thought that was what mothers did. I don't think you did it on purpose, Claire said. Diane turned around. I think you kept choosing the person who would complain least. Her mother said nothing. And that was usually me. Diane looked down at the mugs. Megan returned from the hallway. Daniel and I are cutting the late-night food station. Diane looked up. But his cousins, they'll survive without sliders at 11:30. Robert laughed once before catching himself. Megan sat down again. We'll cover the rest between us if we have to. Then she looked at Claire. Not at Claire's purse. Not at the folder. At Claire. I still need to figure out what happened between us. Claire felt the old instinct rise immediately. Tell her it was okay. Say they could talk after the wedding. Give her one less problem tonight. Claire. Let the instinct pass. Yes, she said. You do. Megan nodded. No one rescued either of them from the discomfort. By the time Claire stood to leave, the invitation was still on the kitchen island. She picked it up. Diane noticed. So what does this mean? Claire slid it into her purse. It means I'm going home. Are you coming to the wedding? Claire looked at Megan. Megan opened her mouth, then stopped. For once, Diane didn't answer for her. Neither did Robert. Claire waited. Megan finally said, I don't know what I'm asking you yet. It was painful, but it was honest. Claire nodded. Then call me when you do. She walked out without paying the $42,000. But for the first time, that wasn't the decision that mattered most. Inside the house, Megan now had a wedding she had to take responsibility for, and a sister she could no longer reach through their mother. 2 days passed without a call from Megan. Claire didn't chase her. That was harder than she expected. Saturday morning, Claire bought groceries, cleaned her apartment, and answered 3 work emails she could have left until Monday. Twice, she opened her messages with Megan. Twice, she closed them. At 6:40 that evening, someone knocked. Megan stood outside alone. No wedding binder. No mother. No request for money. Claire stepped aside. Megan walked in and noticed the invitation on the kitchen counter. You brought it home. I did. They sat across from each other. For a while, neither spoke. Then Megan asked, if Mom hadn't called you that day, were you still planning to come? Claire looked at her. Yes. Megan nodded slowly. I thought so. You weren't sure? I wasn't sure about anything. Claire waited. Megan rubbed her thumb along her sleeve. Daniel's mom kept asking whether you and Mom were going to fight. Mom kept saying she didn't know how you'd behave if certain relatives brought things up. Dad said everybody needed to make the day easy. And you picked me. Megan looked down. Yes. Why? The answer took time. Because you're the one person I thought wouldn't punish me for it. Claire leaned back. There it was again. Not hatred. Not jealousy. Trust twisted into permission. You knew it. Would hurt me. Yes. But you thought I'd take it. Megan's eyes filled, but Claire didn't look away. Yes. Claire let the answer stay in the room. Megan wiped beneath one eye. I'm sorry. Claire could have ended the discomfort right there. She knew exactly how. Tell Megan it was okay. Hug her. Ask about the wedding. Become useful again. Instead, Claire asked, what are you sorry for? Megan looked surprised. For uninviting you. Only that. Megan thought about it. For letting Mom tell you. Claire waited. And for assuming you'd still pay. That was closer. Megan looked toward the invitation. We cut the guest upgrades. Daniel and I canceled the late-night food. His parents are paying for the bar upgrade because they wanted it. Dad covered what he actually offered. And Mom. She's furious that everybody suddenly wants exact numbers. Claire almost smiled. Almost. We can make the wedding work now, Megan said. I'm glad. Megan looked directly at her. I didn't come here about that. Claire said nothing. I want you at the wedding. The words Claire had wanted 3 days earlier finally arrived. They didn't feel the way she had imagined. Because now there was a second question attached to them. Why? Megan seemed to understand. Not because of the money. Claire glanced at the invitation. If I come, Mom will think this is fixed. I know. Dad will call it everyone moving on. I know. And if I pay after you invite me back, we teach everybody the same lesson again. Megan nodded. Claire stood and walked to the counter. She picked up the invitation. For months, it had meant she had a place. Then it meant she didn't. Now Claire understood that neither piece of paper nor guest list could answer that question for her. She turned back. I'm not paying $42,000 to come to your wedding. I'm not asking you to. I know. Claire set the invitation down between them. But I haven't decided whether coming is the same thing as pretending this didn't happen. Megan's face tightened. So what do you need? Claire had spent years answering that question with whatever made life easiest for everyone else. This time, she knew. I need you to. Decide what having me there actually means. Megan frowned slightly. Claire continued. If you want me because I'm your sister, tell me that. If you want me there because you feel guilty, don't invite me. And if Mom changes her mind tomorrow, I need to know whether this is still your decision. Megan stared at the invitation. For the first time, Claire wasn't waiting to be chosen. She was deciding what being chosen would have to mean. Claire didn't give Megan an answer that night. For once, she didn't think a fast answer was kinder. On Monday evening, Megan called. Not Diane. Not Robert. Megan. Claire answered from her kitchen. Hey. I talked to Mom. Claire waited. She thinks inviting you again makes us look ridiculous. Claire looked at the wedding invitation still sitting on the counter. And what do you think? I think I already made one decision because I was afraid of making other people uncomfortable. A pause. I'm not doing it twice. Claire sat down. Megan continued. I want you at my wedding because you're my sister. If Mom is upset, she can be upset. There was no speech after that. No promise that everything would be different. Just a decision Megan was finally willing to own. Claire ran her thumb along the edge of the invitation. What about the money? We fixed the budget. All of it. Enough. Megan explained what they had changed. The smaller floral package stayed. The premium bar was being paid for by Daniel's parents. Several hotel rooms had been released. Robert had contributed the amount he had actually intended to contribute. Megan and Daniel were covering the remaining gap themselves. Then Megan said, Mom still thinks you should pay what you originally promised. Claire almost asked what Diane believed that amount was. Instead, she asked the question that mattered. What do you think I promised? Megan was quiet for a moment. You promised to help. Yes. You didn't promise to pay for every decision everybody else made. Claire closed her eyes briefly. That was the first time anyone in her family had said it aloud. I did make a commitment, Claire said. I know. And I don't want to pretend I didn't just because I'm angry. You don't owe us anything. That's not the point either. Claire stood and walked to the desk where she kept the wedding receipts. Months earlier, before upgrades and extra rooms and everyone else's preferences had been folded into the budget, Claire had chosen an amount she was comfortable giving Megan as a wedding gift. Not a rescue. Not an open credit line. A gift. She had lost track of that difference somewhere along the way. Claire pulled out the first note she had made during wedding planning. There it was. A number in her handwriting. She told Megan, That's what I'm contributing. Megan didn't answer immediately. Then, okay. No 42,000. No 42,000. No extra charges sent through Mom. I understand. And if something goes wrong next week, you call me because you want your sister. Not because you need someone to absorb the problem. Megan gave a small laugh that sounded more tired than amused. That might take practice. For both of us. Another silence. Then Megan asked, Are you coming? Claire looked at the invitation. 3 days earlier, She would have done almost anything to hear that question. Now she understood that being invited wasn't enough. What mattered was whether she could walk into that wedding without using money to secure her place, without pretending the exclusion hadn't happened, and without returning to the role everyone found convenient. She could. Yes, Claire said. I'm coming. The next evening, Diane called. Claire knew the conversation was coming. I heard you and Megan worked something out. We did. She told me you're not covering the balance. The balance has already been reworked. That isn't what I said. Claire waited. Diane lowered her voice. After everything this family has done for you, I don't understand why you're choosing now to make a point. Claire looked out the window. A week earlier, that sentence would have pulled her into an argument about fairness. She would have listed receipts, reminded Diane of every favor, tried to prove she was a good daughter. She didn't. I'm not making a point. Then what are you doing? I'm keeping the commitment I actually made. And leaving your sister with the rest. Her wedding expenses aren't something I'm leaving her with. They're hers. Diane went silent. Claire continued, calmly. I love Megan. I'm going to her wedding. I'm giving her the gift I chose to give her. Those three things can exist without me paying $42,000. You're really willing to let us struggle over this? There it was. The old invitation. Not the paper one. The invitation to become responsible for everyone's discomfort again. Claire looked at the wedding card on the counter. No, Mom. Diane inhaled. Claire finished before she could answer. I'm willing to let each of us be responsible for our own choices. She didn't hang up dramatically. She didn't threaten to stop speaking to anyone. She simply let the sentence stand. Diane had made choices. Robert had made choices. Megan had made choices. And Claire had finally made one too. She would attend her sister's wedding. She would keep the promise she had actually made. But she would not pay for the privilege of belonging there. 3 weeks later, Claire stood outside the ceremony room holding a small white envelope. Not $42,000. Not a check meant to rescue the wedding. Just the gift she had decided on months ago, before helping had turned into an obligation nobody bothered to define. Inside, guests were finding their seats. The wedding looked different from the version Megan had planned. The flower arrangements were smaller. The premium bar was gone. The late-night food station never returned. A few relatives had booked their own hotel rooms after the reserved block was reduced. Nobody seemed devastated. People talked. Children pulled at uncomfortable dress clothes. Daniel's uncle was already asking someone where the coffee was. The wedding had survived becoming affordable. Claire almost smiled at that. Megan found her before the ceremony. For a second, neither sister spoke. Then Megan looked at the envelope. You really didn't have to bring anything. I know. Claire handed it to her. That mattered. Megan accepted the gift because Claire chose to give it. Not because Diane had promised it. Not because a vendor was waiting. Not because Claire needed to prove she belonged. Thank you, Megan said. Claire nodded. Then Megan hugged her. Across the room, Diane saw them. She didn't come over. Things between Claire and her mother had not magically repaired themselves. Diane was polite during the wedding. Robert was quieter than usual. Neither apologized in front of the family, and Claire no longer needed a public apology to make the day mean something. When the ceremony began, Claire sat in the second row, not hidden in the back, not placed somewhere special to compensate for what had happened, just with the family. For years, Claire had believed belonging was something she maintained by being useful. At Megan's wedding, she finally sat still. Someone else handled the schedule. Someone else answered the vendor questions. When the photographer needed Robert, Claire didn't go find him. When Diane realized a relative had missed the shuttle, Claire didn't pull out her phone. The problems found other solutions. That may have been the strangest discovery of all. The Bennett family could function without Claire preventing every inconvenience. They simply had to learn how. The changes afterward were small, which was probably why they lasted. 2 months later, Diane called. Megan needs help comparing. Claire waited. Diane stopped herself. Then she said, Actually, Megan should probably call you. Yes, Claire said. She should. Megan did. Sometimes Claire helped her. Sometimes she said she couldn't. The first few times, Megan sounded surprised. Eventually, she stopped sounding surprised. Robert changed more slowly. He still preferred peace to confrontation, but one Sunday at dinner, Diane started explaining why Megan had canceled a family plan. Robert looked at Megan and said, She's sitting right there. Let her tell us. Claire looked down at her plate. She didn't smile, but she remembered it. There were setbacks too. Diane occasionally returned to, we're family, when she wanted Claire to bend. The difference was that Claire no longer heard those words as an instruction. Family could be a reason to care. It could not be a blank check. Megan and Claire never became the kind of sisters who called each other 3 times a day. Their relationship became something quieter and more honest. Megan stopped using their mother as a messenger. Claire stopped pretending she wasn't hurt whenever Megan disappointed her. They disagreed directly. They apologized directly. That turned out to be much less comfortable than the old system. It was also healthier. The wedding invitation stayed in Claire's kitchen drawer for several months. One afternoon, while looking for a takeout menu, she found it again. She ran her thumb over her name. There had been a time when that piece of paper felt like proof that she belonged. Then its cancellation had felt like proof that she didn't. Claire understood now that both ideas had given the invitation too much power. She dropped it into the recycling bin and closed the drawer. From the outside, this family's conflict could look like it was about a $42,000 wedding bill. It wasn't. The money simply exposed a rule everyone had stopped noticing. The most dependable person was expected to carry the greatest burden because everyone assumed she could handle it. That isn't fairness. And it isn't respect. Family relationships sometimes require sacrifice. They require patience too. But sacrifice has to remain a choice, and responsibility has to belong to the people making the decisions. Claire didn't teach her family that lesson by destroying Megan's wedding. She didn't need them to lose everything. She changed the family by changing the one role she actually controlled. Her own. She remained a daughter. She remained a sister. She still helped when she wanted to. But from then on, being loved and being useful were no longer the same thing. And nobody in the Bennett family got to decide otherwise for her.